I met a gypsy.
How Emotions Are Made. The Secret Life of the Brain by Lisa Feldman Barrett. Damn, this book is so fucking good. I listened to a podcast with Lisa Feldman Barrett on Lex Friedman's podcast, and instantly I was just so pumped. If you listen to last year's podcast, there was a lot of, I guess, neuroscience-y sort of stuff in there, as well as some meditation stuff. I'm so interested in the way in which science and the, I guess, meditation stuff kind of intersect and overlap, and they're all just saying the same shit. And then I try and, I guess, put that into my own experience in a way. And it's kind of, yeah, it's super, super interesting to me. The brain and how we think and how we feel and how we interface with the world has been just a fascination of mine my whole life, but it's only been in the last, I guess, like 3 or 4 years that I've really kind of, I guess, started to get some good knowledge around it. And it's just, I guess that knowledge, you know, the old saying, knowledge is power, but it's just changed so much in my life. And then you add in, I guess, the meditation, like the practical side of it, and actually sitting and like really sitting with these kind of things. Yeah, it's been epic. So really recommend this book. She's got another book in this pile, which is like coming up in a couple, 7.5 Lessons on the Brain. I can't remember which one was like new at the time, but one of these was like a pre-order. But yeah, this is a really, really interesting book. I've got a few things highlighted here that would be cool to read. What's the first one? I'm sorry about my reading. I never really read out aloud either. So basically, one of the cool revelations in this book, there's a bunch of like just revelations, like the things that were taught in school were just no longer accepted by science. But I just don't think that's filtered down to the everyday person these days. But basically that we're prediction machines. Like, the first chapter of 7.5 Lessons on the Brain is that your brain is for predicting, not thinking. And I guess it sort of fits this whole model of really what our first person experience is just like this consciousness, and basically like the interface that we have with what we call reality is just a projection that's happening within our mind, which is fucking crazy to get your head around. I'll just read a small paragraph here. Suppose you're playing baseball. Someone throws the ball in your direction and you reach out and catch it. Most likely you'd experience this as two events: seeing a ball and then catching it. If your brain actually reacted like this, however, baseball couldn't exist as a sport. Your brain has about half a second to prepare to catch a baseball in a typical game. This isn't enough time to process the visual input, calculate where the ball will land, make the decision to move, coordinate all the muscle movements, and send the motor commands to move you into a position to make the catch. Prediction makes the game possible. Your brain launches predictions well before you consciously see the ball, just like it predicts a red apple in the grocery store using your past experience. As each prediction propagates through millions of prediction loops, your brain stimulates the sights, sounds, and other sensations that the prediction represents, as well as the actions you will take to catch the ball. Your brain then compares this simulation to actual sensory input. If they match, success. The prediction is correct, and the sensory input proceeds no further into your brain. Your body is now prepared to catch the ball, and your movement is based on your prediction. Finally, you consciously see the ball and then catch it. So that's kind of cool to think about. There's a whole, obviously, chapter on that. There's also, I guess, this concept of a body budget. And basically, I guess the thinking behind this is just the fact that predictions and like the caching of these predictions are actually a way more economical way for the body to use its energy, and the brain is actually, it takes such a large percentage of what Lisa Feldman Barrett calls the body budget. As it turns out, this is me reading again. As it turns out, people spend at least half of their waking hours simulating rather than paying attention to the world around them. And this pure simulation strongly drives their feelings. I'm skipping ahead a little bit here. In contrast, when you lose a close, loving relationship or feel physically ill about it, part of the reason for that is your beloved one is no longer helping you regulate your body budget. You feel like you've lost a part of yourself because, in a sense, you have. This chapter is just really, really interesting, and it's called The Origin of Feeling. But it's really interesting. So again, like this is kind of a little intersection between meditation and science. So you get, this chapter that says, this paragraph that says, as it turns out, people spend at least half of their waking hours simulating rather than paying attention to the world around them. And this pure simulation strongly drives their feelings. This is the exact same thing that the Buddha said 5,000 years ago. This is kind of what I guess I enjoy reading these kinds of books, and then the more spiritual stuff, because it just matches one to one, and we're just finding out more and more and more. I guess when you have this kind of knowledge, it really just kind of helps you take less stock in the way that you feel, because a lot of times your feelings just get in the way of like shit that's actually important. The concept of affect is pretty cool too, which is basically just like this, there's like valence and then affect, which is, I guess, that is what feeling is. There's like a little kind of diagram here that sort of can fit all of your feelings, I guess, like into this one of these sections. So some really cool stuff there. What else there's so much stuff. Oh, this was really cool too. Concepts, goals, and words. There's a really cool analogy here. Might be able to see it on the thing. Basically, rainbow that's drawn with stripes and a continuous rainbow. So like in terms of what is actually happening in a rainbow, there is no clear definition between the colors. But because of the concepts that our brain has for colors, it gets grouped and it's shown in a rainbow as like really definitive lines. So the chapter kind of starts with that. There's a cool little paragraph that I've highlighted here while I was going. Shall I read that bit? This whole chapter is so sick. Without concepts, you'd experience a world of ever fluctuating noise. Everything you'd ever encountered would be unlike everything else. You'd be experientially blind. Like when you first saw the you didn't see that picture. I'll actually just read the first little bit of this chapter. When you look at a rainbow, you see discrete stripes of color, roughly like the drawing on the left side of figure 5.1. But in nature, a rainbow has no stripes. It's a continuous spectrum of light with wavelengths that range from approximately 400 to 750 nanometers. This spectrum has no borders or bands of any kind. Why do you and I see stripes? Because we have mental concepts for colors like red, orange, and yellow. Your brain automatically uses these concepts to group together the wavelengths of in certain ranges of the spectrum, categorizing them as the same color. Your brain downplays the variation within each color category and magnifies the difference between the categories, causing you to perceive bands of color. Human speech is also continuous, a stream of sound. Yet when you listen to your native language, you hear discrete words. How does that happen? Once again, you use concepts to categorize the continuous input. Beginning in infancy, you learn regulatories in the stream of speech that reveal the boundaries between phonemes. The smallest bits of sounds that you can distinguish is a language. For example, the sound of D or P in English. These regularities become concepts that your brain later uses to categorize the stream of sound into syllables and words. So then this like concepts keep going, I guess like all the way down, when it comes to just like knowledge and, grouping of people, etc. It is said that that a concept is represented in the brain as the best example of its category, known as the prototype. In this view, as you learn about a category, your brain supposedly represents the concept as a single prototype. It might be the most frequent example of the category or the most typical example, meaning the instance that is the closest match or has the majority of a category's features. This is like pretty interesting for me, I guess, because I've always kind of said when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I like to learn in concepts. So I guess it's just like groups of information that like look similar. So the example that I use, and I mean, you can sort of see this in motocross too, right? So it's like a concept is weight the outside of the peg. You're going to use that in a multitude of different like specific instances, but it's kind of just like this category that you can group together. In jiu-jitsu, it's like to get an underhook on the opposite side or like the far side of a person's body. So you can do that whether you're on the top, you can do that from the bottom. There's like all these different ways in which like that concept applies. When it comes to guard passing, that if you've got, you know, the soles of somebody's feet are pointed towards you, then don't put weight on that person and deflect them away from you. If you have deflected the soles of somebody's feet away from you, then you should put your weight on that person. So that's just concepts. It's like there's so many specific scenarios where that is the case, but they're all like different scenarios, but they kind of come under like that, form under that same concept. So anyway, this book goes into, I guess, talking about emotions, the way that biology plays on emotions. It gets a lot into, I guess, like the self. So yeah, this is one of the coolest books that I read last year. Loved it. I think you'll love it as well. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.